CanHammer is a gaming podcast from the Great White North. See canhammer.ca for more info.
All right, guys, I got a joke for you. What's so you know the new Korn warband? The leader's name is Magor, right? So what's Magor's favorite food?
Oh, it's got to be cornflakes.
Close one. That's a good one. It was actually corn dogs.
Is that better than the actual punchline?
It was actually corn dogs.
Okay.
Cornflakes works too.
Oh yeah, the dog, corn dogs. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just made that up, as you can tell.
We should really hire you, Darren. I think you're.
I should. Hey, they were looking for a Warhammer community public relations person. You know.
Yeah, there you go.
Right up my alley. All right, welcome everybody to CanHammer, your source for 40K from the Great White North. Tonight's episode is 120. I'd like to say 6 or 7, but Chris has been sneaking in podcast episodes, and we've been sneaking in Shadespire episodes, so it's 120 something. And tonight's a Shadespire podcast, and I have with me, as usual, for Shadespire, Phil.
What's up?
And we have a very special guest tonight, the one, the only, the legendary Mike Haspil.
Hello, what's going on?
Welcome, Mike. Welcome. For those of you who don't know Mike is one of 4 guys on the Long
4.
War.
Sometimes more, sometimes less.
Sometimes more, sometimes less.
Yeah,
sometimes you got the Jason guy from Slow Fuse Games.
Slow Fuse, yeah.
But yeah, so Mike is one of the original 4, I guess, and a big Shadespire fanatic. And I feel like you don't get to talk about it that much on Long War. So here's your opportunity tonight to
that's going to be fun
to really talk about some Shadespire. So thanks for joining us, Mike. Before we get to know you a little bit better, just want to thank the patrons for supporting our channel and our podcast and all the things that we do. Thank you very much. Without you, we wouldn't be able to get our content out there, and to attract marquee guests such as Mike. So what we'll do, Mike, is we ask all our new podcast attendees a simple question. Are you a hobby person, a gamer, or a fluff bunny at heart?
I am a gamer, probably in the truest definition of the sense, because if that makes any sense at all. But I play games, like no matter what, where, medium, I don't care. Board games, tabletop, computer, anything, I'll play it.
All right. Are you playing all those GW video games that have been like Fast and Furious recently?
I'm ashamed to say that I probably own most of them. I don't play them all regularly, but I at least bought them because I want GW to make more games. So unfortunately, some of them don't pan out. There are a couple of really good gems in there. Sanctus Reach, I find myself playing that quite a bit. And then there's another game that came out for mobile first. It's called Space Wolf. And it's kind of a card-based game. And on Steam, it seems like, sorry, that's my phone. But on Steam, they don't nickel and dime you as much as they do. It's free to play, so you have to deal with that. That it's all microtransactions. But on the PC, they don't seem to nickel and dime you as much.
Yeah, what happened to Dawn of War 3? It was supposed to be the next biggest thing since like Warcraft, and it's just I've not even heard anything about it. Like
it kind of died almost the week that it came out because. Wow. I don't know who they were. In my experience, I don't know who they were making the game for. I played it for a couple hours and I had a really good time, but I was playing multiplayer and I was playing with friends of mine. And as soon as I went to like the open kind of multiplayer, I lost interest in the game and I started playing the campaign thinking that it would be fun. And it's like part MOBA, part RTS, but
no identity.
Both games, yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it found an audience, and it just kind of died.
Well, in gaming terms, that's what you would call a fluff.
Yeah.
And so were you a convert to Shadespire right from the beginning, or did you hop into it later on?
No, like right from the beginning. I was lucky enough to go to, I guess it was in Adepticon 2017 when GW did their demos there. They had like the studio preview that they do like the night before Adepticon. And we all piled in there, and they unleashed, all their cool new stuff. And then they talked about Shadespire. And at first I was like, it's AOS, which I liked, but 8th edition kind of killed my interest in AOS because I had a Stormcast army. I was painting it. I was ready to field it and everything. And then 8th dropped, and I was like, well, 40K, So, but yeah, they called us all into the next room, and they had Shadespire there, and you could play it. And it was, of course, just Stormcasts and the Reavers. And I hate Chaos. I won't play Chaos, and I played the Reavers, and I was hooked.
You mean you were converted to Chaos, or just hooked on Shadespire?
Just hooked on Shadespire. I was like, because they taught us the game in maybe 6-7 minutes, and as we were playing, and I was just like, there is so much going on here, and I was already thinking about how to build decks and everything, and then it was just like, oh, when does this come out? And I remember it was like 6 months or longer, and I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like,
I gotta wait for this.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't like bring it out and go, here's this awesome game, and oh yeah, you can't have it for a long time. Yeah, but I'm kind of glad they waited though.
Yeah. I think they had to wait till they had a critical mass of stuff they could release quickly, I guess.
Yeah.
Because that's where the game would have failed if they just released the box and then like nothing else.
In fact, their release schedule has actually surprised me that they released that fast. Yeah.
This last batch feels like it came like we had a bit of a gap between the Chosen Axes and Spike Claw Swarm, but these two seem like they just like showed up right, like 2 weeks later.
I guess we can talk about that now. So there's been rumors or discussions about whatever Wave 2 or the next setting, right? Because it's Warhammer Underworlds : Shadespire being the setting. So there must be Warhammer Underworld other settings. And so I don't know if anybody really knows what's going to happen. Does that mean all this stuff is a separate game and there's a new game, or will it be interchangeable? I don't know.
I mean, it feels like they definitely have like the living card game feel. So I think it's just going to be more stuff that's compatible. It would feel weird that they would sort of stop you from using the previous stuff. So I think we mentioned this like a while ago. Like even in the rules it says you pick up one of your boards and place it. So I think after the four boards that we have now, there'll probably be a box with like
more boards,
essentially two more double-sided board pieces, so you can start mixing and matching them. I think so whatever they however it works, I think it'll
don't you think it'd be weird if it's like, I don't know, Realm of Fire or whatever, and then so you have like one guy has a fire board and one guy has like a ruins board?
I mean, not necessarily. I guess if it's like this whole like dimension is fractured and you're basically like in between worlds, so it might actually kind of look cool, right? So we might have some a different vibe. And they will have spirit hosts in that one, right? Like, did you see there's one that they showed? And, you see that little gate symbol, that little ghostly gate. So it looks like it'll be like spirit folks.
It was some kind of undead faction for sure.
Yeah,
or a Nagash faction.
Nagash faction, yeah. Ooh, which is nice. Okay, cool. So, Mike, do you get up to any hobby in your busy life, or?
Yeah, and you kind of caught me at a weird time right now. I've actually suspended all my hobby stuff until after June. And it was just it was a decision I had to come to because I'm also an author, and I have to have another book out essentially by June. So I can't really be scheming, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's when I write something, I kind of need to be immersed in that world so that even when I'm like just driving back and forth to work, all my, my imagination is running in there and not building armies or Shadespire decks. So I had to just set it all aside, which really hurt, because as soon as they did that, Games Workshop was like, oh, here's Necrons. Oh, you play Deathwatch? Here's Deathwatch, coming. And, oh, here's the other 2 warbands. I was like, but you just released, you can't do that.
Not until June.
Yeah. No, it's certainly we've got a lull here, and by lull I mean like 1 week off. But it's certainly fast and furious, that's for sure. Yeah. Phil, what you been up to hobby wise? Anything?
No, actually, I've been very I have my dwarves, my chosen axes are on, they're my last warband from this batch to paint, and I haven't had a chance. It feels in between work, writing too, right? So I've been on too many shows, so I my usual daytime sneak off and do some painting hasn't happened at all. So I've been just working, which is
letting down the side, man. Letting down the side.
I know. It's been too busy. So we're trying to do all this stuff for a new Netflix show and stuff. So we're
Netflix show. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's something percolating there. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, and then we have to do another because our first feature released on I don't know if we have it in Canada, but it's called Shudder. It's like AMC's it's like Netflix but for horror movies.
Okay.
Yeah, so our first feature is doing really well on there, and they basically were like, when can we get your next movie? So now we have to write.
That is a good problem to have, man.
Yeah.
Mike, so are you a horror movie fan?
I am a horror movie fan. I love it.
You should check out my movie. It's quite good.
Well, what's it called?
It's called Dead Shack. So you can find it on it's on iTunes, it's on demand in the States somewhere, and yeah, it's on this platform called Shudder, which is essentially like Netflix but just for horror movies.
Like Shudder, SHUDDER.
Yeah, like shuddering. Yeah, so it's a horror comedy thing, which is what we seem to do, me and my buddies. So yeah, it's pretty fun. So check it out.
All right.
But yeah. So
nice.
So now that's yeah. So all the fun hobby stuff is kind of taking a back seat a little bit. So
nice. And since we're into the plugs right now, so Mike, your latest book was Graveyard Shift. And,
that is correct.
I actually have it on my next to read right after I finish reading Eisenhorn. So I will be reading it next. So, and I'm quite excited about it because I heard it's extremely good.
Oh,
and is it fantasy?
It is urban fantasy. So cool. It is the easiest short way to describe it is kind of Lethal Weapon if Riggs was a mummy and Murtaugh was a vampire.
Oh, I got to read that.
Hence the title. Oh, awesome. Yeah, it sounds like a way better version of Bright. So
it has. I was a little bit stunned when I saw Bright. I was like, hey, this has a lot in common.
We had a fantasy, one of those if Middle Earth became modern show and play a long time ago, and so when we saw it, I was like, oh, okay, that's so it happens. It's in the ether, I suppose. We didn't get $8 million to write it though, so
no.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hobby wise, I've been gearing up for CanHammer Team Tournament, which is in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, and I have to finish my Custodes. And of course, I've committed myself to painting everyone like a top-notch character paint, so it's taking me some time.
They're beautiful.
Yeah. And I still haven't started the marble bases yet, which I suspect will take me a while. But
that sounds good. Yeah, that's the way you got to do those guys.
I think so. They're just beautiful, and you can't just slap some paint on them, man. You got to give them the due as the Emperor's Guardians, and the army looks great when it's done. But man, they take a long time. When you look at them, you just think, oh, they're just gold and a bit of detail. And yeah, they are gold with a lot of detail.
Yeah.
All right. So we're just going to quickly just mention that Dark Eldar, of course, is out. And I believe Chris and Scary and Dan are doing a podcast tomorrow on the new Dark Eldar book. So stay tuned for that. And, of course, and Phil, you might be interested in this, the Idoneth Deepkin.
The Deepkin, yeah.
Was it? I think it's out for pre-order this
I
weekend.
don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what they're called.
I don't know.
But
Deepkin.
they look cool. Yeah, they
but
look amazing.
Apparently Chris is already prepared to buy a whole army of them.
It's not surprising. I mean, when we saw the pictures at the studio preview at Adepticon, it literally took people's breath away. Like as soon as they started showing stuff, I was like, wow, they've outdone themselves.
And that dude who's like riding the wave, like that's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like you see at the base how it's like barely attached to the base. It's crazy.
All of it, just giant turtles, like those guys riding like piranhas or sharks or whatever. Like it looks amazing. I just can't start another AOS army. Yeah. It's if it were up to me, I would have like every AOS army I find the model range.
And that's literally like a month or 6 weeks after Daughters of Cain, another completely new army. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a good time to be playing AOS. Like this summer for Blood and that's the Capital City Bloodbath.
Yeah.
And AOS all the way, man.
That's a perfect segue, Phil. It's like you've done this before.
Buy your tickets.
So, Capital City Bloodbath, our big annual tournament in Ottawa. Tickets are up for sale actually 2 days ago, and we are already 50% sold on 40K and about 30% sold on AOS. So don't wait too long to get your tickets. It's going to be a crazy big event this year.
Amazing.
CanHammer team, of course, I'll mention, although it's been sold out from 8 minutes after it went live, but that is in a few weeks' time. 120 players, ETC team tournament style. It's going to be super fun. We've already you get points for banter at this tournament, or for like internet like flaming people and stuff like that. So it's been lively. And probably at the end of May, we're going to have our next Powerfist and Psychers. Capital City Bloodbath will be ITC format, so we'll probably be running ITC for P&Ps from here till the end of the summer. So keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, so with that, we're going to have a quick commercial break. Hear a word from Martin, one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
Hey guys, Martin here from wargamesuk.co.uk. Proud to sponsor their boys at CanHammer. Come check us out for some great discounts on all your hobby goodness and needs.
And we're back. And so we're going to go right on to our main topic, which is, first we want to talk a little bit about Adepticon and just in general the Grand Clash experience. I don't know how many of our listeners have been to an actual GW run Grand Clash. We, of course, are running a not-so-grand Clash in a few days' time with 10 players. But hey, you got to start somewhere. But Mike, our guest, has been to every American Grand Clash?
Yeah, all two of them.
there's
I guess they've had.
I thought there'd be
Yeah,
more.
they had two in the UK and then two here. One at LVO and one at Adepticon.
Oh yes, I guess those other ones were in the UK. Yeah. So what's it like going to a GW run Grand Clash?
It was a fantastic experience both times. The guys who ran the Grand Clash were the guys who designed the game. So when you call a judge over and you go, hey, and they say, that's not what that card means. That's not what that card means.
It's pretty definitive.
Yeah. So, and they had a lot of prize support, just crazy amounts of prize support. Like, I think if you finished at LVO, if you finished in the top 32, you walked away with something, whether it was alternate art cards or little acrylic tokens that you could only get through their tournaments or something. And then they did the same thing at Adepticon, but at Adepticon, I want to say they had about 100 people. So it was like if you finished in the top, I want to say like 60 people. It was something nuts. You got something.
Wow.
So, and the experience of playing it at LVO, they started with the Grand Clash on Friday, which was 4 rounds, best of 3. And and I think they had about 40 people playing in it, and the games were extremely competitive and a heck of a lot of fun. And everybody was very, very friendly. One of the things I like about Shadespire is even when you're playing super hardcore, I guess the player base is a lot more laid back, and it could just be that there's not the time investment that there is in, say, like 40K.
Yeah.
So if you start losing in Shadespire, I told some friends of mine, and I certainly didn't make this up, but it's like if you make a mistake in 40K, your next turn is how do I recover from that mistake? In Shadespire, you go, how do I not do that in the next game? Because that probably cost you the game.
Yeah. So when you say it was extremely competitive, were you surprised at that?
No, but I was surprised at the level that got brought at Adepticon. So at like LVO, I think a lot of people were still discovering the game.
Yeah.
And we had some people that only had maybe one game under their belt, were brand new. And then on Sunday, they held another tournament, but it wasn't a Grand Clash format. It was only 3 rounds, best of 3. And there were people that if you were part of the VIG package at LVO, you got a copy of Shadespire, like the starter.
Yeah.
So there were people that had just assembled their models the night before.
Yeah.
And came out to play and had a blast. Yeah. At Adepticon, people came to win that Grand Clash. Mm-hmm. And the level was just stepped up. And of course, the UK Grand Clash had not been that much earlier, maybe a month earlier.
Yeah.
And where Skaven had taken the whole thing.
Yeah.
And people came ready to headhunt Skaven because I don't think Skaven finished the top 10 at Adepticon.
Well, and that's been really interesting. I think in a lot of these sort of bigger tournaments, there seems to have been like a rotation of all I think there's been it feels like 4 or 5, and the first one was I think Sepulchral Guard took it. Then there's a Stormcast that was hot for a while, and then recently there was I think Orcs one. Was that
Orcs one at
Adepticon, right? Yeah. So it feels like most of these warbands have kind of I think it's just it seems to speak to the game that I think if you're good with your deck and if you play a lot, I think it's easy to learn, and then mastering the game, I think it's a lot of just you need to play a lot. I think. Well, did you see a lot of people that? Oh,
sorry,
I was gonna say it was the sort of the folks that you were playing at. Were they people that have got in 20, 30 plus games, or a lot of newer players?
I had one newer player that I played against. He was playing Skaven, but he was new with Skaven. He wasn't a new player.
Right.
He had played, he probably had 20 or 30 games under his belt, but only maybe 5 or 6 with Skaven. So he was still reading some of the cards and trying to figure out some combos and stuff. And that was the biggest difference between, I would say, LVO and Adepticon, is at Adepticon, the card combos that you saw, I mean, it was not unusual to see somebody string 3 or 4 cards together and just ruin you. You're like, oh, goodbye, Gerzag.
Yeah, so I wonder the fact that, we've had 4 clashes and 4 different winners, faction wise. Obviously some of that is that factions get released and they're kind of the hotness. But I wonder how much of that is actual balance, or how much of it is that the stuff they release is meant to counter the stuff that they released before, or maybe some of both of that.
Yeah, this is my theory. I have no proof on this, but I think they designed all the cards and all the factions all at once, and I think it's pretty well balanced. Mm-hmm. There are a couple cards in there that I think they didn't anticipate being as powerful as they might be, like maybe Earthquake, for certain, and a couple of the other auto includes. They probably didn't anticipate that they'd be as popular or as powerful, but I think it's actually pretty well balanced, because going into Adepticon, I said, well, you're never going to see any Reaver players. The only Reaver guys you're going to see are guys who don't have anything else painted, and Reavers took second place. It was like, whoa,
oh, they threw a second. Yeah, I called them to win actually, because I'm playing Reavers this weekend, and I really, really like them. I was going to ask you if if it was a mistake. It was just me being like, rose-colored glasses, because I think they're so much fun. So.
Well, yeah, I think as Mike says, I think if you put two people with equal skill level with their decks together, I think they'll have a fairly close match. And just in our playing, we've all tried all the factions. Me, you, Phil, and some of our friends around here, and it's anybody's game on any given day. It's
yeah.
Which is good. Like, you don't want to feel like in 40K sometimes you see somebody's list and you're like, oh, I can't win.
I had that feeling a little bit right before they released the dwarves in Skaven, and it wasn't with the game. It was just with orcs. I play orcs primarily, and I got really sick of just orcs being very dice dependent. Yeah, and my dice were just always cold. Like right when I needed them to just do something, I'm like, come on, and it would just fail and let me down. So I was like, I'm kind of done with these guys, and I'm gonna move to dwarves as soon as they came out. So as soon as they came out, I was hardcore. I'm gonna play dwarves, and then as I'm looking at these cards, I'm like, this would be a really good one in my orc deck, and I was right back to orcs, like right back. And so I was just like, I do play dwarves as well, but I think this new card set that's coming out, that's going to make dwarves' life harder than it is.
And there's a couple of great new auto includes for orcs too. There's that I like that deals the damage to everyone. It's your I inspire everyone right away.
Yeah.
But I mean, if everyone starts including that to counter orcs, then the orc player damages everyone once, and then you damage everyone again, and then you'll.
So I guess we'll. Sorry, Mike. Google.
Oh, no. That's what I kind of love about it is that depending – and this is another thing, like at our local game store, Gamers Haven, we'll have these debates on, Stormcast Eternals are the top faction or it's going to be Guard or Skaven or whatever. And I found that just because, I'll have arguments with friends of mine because they'll just be like, well, this is how you build your SCE deck. And I'm just like, I don't play that way. And it's just, it's based on play style. It's like, okay, you want to do that? I'm very aggro. You're really defensive. We're going to have two totally different. My deck will not work for you at all, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I like the hybrid approach too. I mean, it's what's great about the game is that you are in control of your victory conditions. So I like my sort of my Reavers. I like them to smash face, but with a sort of they're kind of like, they can kind of do both. They can play objectives a little bit, and then they can smash face, and I kind of meet them in the middle depending on who I'm playing against. And I found that that's worked out really well. So, because I also do find that it's not quite rock paper scissors in between the factions, but there's definitely some that feel like they're stronger against others. So I think that seems to be the trick with those big 3-4 game tournaments, is that I think some. You might Skaven might struggle against Khorne, but then Skaven is probably a bit better than Skeletons, or I don't know. Like there feels like there's a bit of a,
Yeah. So, and what I like so far. Oh, sorry. Sorry,
keep going.
Oh, what I like so far, and I could just be naive, but I haven't seen any like net decks. I mean, obviously they publish here's these decks and everything, but I haven't seen like. When you go up, you're like, oh, this is this guy's deck. He's going to use this, and I can't win against that. I haven't run into that.
Yeah.
It's not Magic the Gathering, right? Where you're like,
right.
You're playing Modern Boggles or something, and that's just the deck, and everyone runs that deck except with one card that might be different. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned things like Earthquake, and it was thought that this card was too powerful and is going to shift everything. So did that end up being the case at Adepticon, or not really?
No, because everybody who needed to mitigate Earthquake came with things to mitigate Earthquake. Mm-hmm. And I had it in my orc deck just because I was like, man, this is so powerful. But when I was playing in a local tournament, I found, if I could think ahead of time, like I suspected my opponent had Earthquake, and I just maneuvered my guys, and I was playing dwarves at the time. I positioned my dwarves in such a way that whichever direction he moved me, I would get one guy inspired, no matter what.
Interesting.
And that seems to be the thing, because I keep sort of going back and forth on Earthquake, and I want to mine your expertise about that card in particular, because I found that if you play dwarves, it's a very important card for you. And a lot of some of the other sort of fightier warbands, it feels like it doesn't have as much of an impact. Like I've tried to put it in the Reavers, but I dropped it. Like, if they want to get inspired, it sucks. But like I don't know. I don't. Why is it so strong? I think in your opinion.
Well, right now, before this new set comes out, right now I think the keys are overly powerful.
Right.
So Earthquake is good for that last turn. This guy is going to score, 5-6 glory because I suspect he's got keys. Well, he's got keys, and I suspect he's got supremacy or something, and I'm going to just drop Earthquake, the last thing and he can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And,
that's like literally the whole game working up to that point that you've just screwed up with one card.
Right.
Well, you seem to have talked me back into the game. Back. That's a horror scenario right there.
Yeah, and I feel that it's really important to have, especially when you're playing the best 2 out of 3 format, because I find I usually lose that first game, and with my orcs, either that or I'll run train on somebody and it'll be a 2-game. I just went in there and just smashed them. But that first game gives you a really good idea of what, and I know we play open decks where you can see what a guy has in their deck, but it gives you a really good idea of their strategy on, do they mill cards a lot? Do they change? And that's something I saw too in a difference. LVO, everybody was running the recommended 12-20.
Yep.
At Adepticon, I saw decks with 24, even 26 power cards.
Yeah, so that seems to be a trend that some other people are noticing, is the 22 plus power deck is becoming a thing, because now there's so many more ploys. Ploys is really the main reason people do that. And there's so many more ploys and so many good ones that you kind of, and then more cards coming out that let you mill through. That, like, Khorne has a new one in this new set coming up that lets you pick up like 3 cards if you kill somebody. That you can run the bigger decks. Man. You can run the bigger decks without too much trouble, and you'll get through them all. So I think that's just the way it's going to go, because it's keeping it down to 10 ploys is becoming really difficult.
And I think you're more incentivized too, that if you get your opening, like right now, if you get your opening hand of your 5 poison upgrades, discarding them and redrawing, like it feels like you run the risk of eventually you can sort of run out of cards. But I think if you have like a slightly bigger deck, you can kind of play to try to get that better opening hand a little more aggressively. So
yeah,
I do like 26, but does GW not give you all the card backs that you need to do the?
No,
they don't give you spares, eh?
No. What was interesting though is like all the Skaven packages had like 13 objective decks or objective sleeves in them.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if that was a genuine mistake or if that was GW kind of exactly play into the Skaven fluff that they're kind of tricksy and cheaters.
And 13 is their lucky number, right? It's the Skaven number, yeah.
So I was just like, oh, that's awesome.
That's hilarious. It is a little bit annoying that if you want to play over 20 cards, you got to buy like another set of sleeves.
Yeah.
And then you have like all these extra objective ones, basically, because you can still only do 12 objectives.
Yeah, and you guys, you probably know I make a joke that I have a GW chip in my head, so I buy just about everything they put
like
out.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, so
you
it's
got 6 set of dice and everything, yeah.
Yeah, and so they're just like, my friends will be like, you can get that for like $2, and I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't say Citadel on it, like or it doesn't have an Aquila,
So are you running more than 22 cards at the moment, then, Mike?
I have 24 cards in my orc deck.
Interesting. How about you, Phil? Are you running more than 20 cards this weekend?
I'm honestly thinking about it. So I haven't finalized my deck yet, but I might go to. I think I'm going to do 24.
Interesting.
There's enough stuff that I like, but I think I'm going to need to run a few of the the dig through your deck cards. There's a couple of them that I think.
Yeah, Duel of Wits and Trust to Luck.
Yep, those are the two. Those I think those are the two that those are the only two right now, is it?
The generic,
right now,
ones, yeah.
They're perfect for that. So, and eventually, I mean, all the Cataphrine relics. If now that the victory point one is finally there, like I want to see that skeleton or that Skaven Cataphrine relic deck.
Yeah.
You get 4. If you stack all of them, you get 4 victory points.
Well, what I was going to say is I had to get out of I was swapping cards in and out of the GW sleeves, and I still bought the GW sleeves because I had to buy them. But I've gone to all like kind of third-party sleeves for all my stuff now.
Yeah.
Just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. So who do you guys think? I know we're thinking that it's mostly pretty balanced, but nothing can be truly balanced. So who do you guys think peaks out ahead at this point before the next 2 warbands come out? I know Orcs won Adepticon, but that may not necessarily mean that they're the best faction.
No, and I would, despite the fact that I love Orcs and I play Orcs, I think they're a little bit too dice dependent to be like the top faction. You have to rely on luck quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. I find they also struggle their objective. I mean, not their objective. Their what are they called? The ones that give you glory. What are those cards called?
Objectives. Yeah.
Yeah, the objective cards. Yeah, they're like your objective deck. I find their class specific ones tend to be a bit. They're not as some of them are not as strong as others. I always felt like I was missing something, whereas I think some of these other factions have like great specific.
Mm-hmm.
Stormcast have probably the most.
Yeah, they have some
really well tailored in faction objective cards. Maybe the Reavers too.
I don't know. Yeah, but I do tend. Yeah, Orcs for a while felt a little like they were a little more challenging. I find even the dwarves. I think the dwarves have a big weakness is that if you get rid of their boss early, if you can kind of trick them into killing that guy, then the rest of the guys aren't as killing. If they're playing a killing game. So
I don't know. I just find the dwarves hard to inspire, and they're not that good when not inspired.
Yeah. The way I started playing dwarves after my 5th or 6th game, because I just got tired of not being able to inspire as many, is I would bank on inspiring one and then just use upgrades to buff everyone else. And if I had the opportunity to get inspired, then I would. But otherwise, I'd just be like, well, I'm still going to come over there and put this axe in your face.
Being inspired is great, but I think like that might actually be the trap with dwarves, that a lot of people just waste a turn to try to put your positioning. You're trying to kind of build your sort of house of cards, and then someone just blows a strip breeze, and then you're kind of left holding nothing. Whereas I think if you inspire, you still fight. They're still pretty dashy, right? So, and then if they happen to get inspired, then you're like all the better, right? So
yeah.
But I don't know, like I like the movement classes. So I do like the Skaven and the Reavers, because they have that 5 and 4 movement is really nice. You can, I guess most warbands can get up to that movement, but I like the lots of bodies with fast movement. What about that guard? Guard felt hard. I played them for the first time against Darren, I think a couple of weeks ago, and the learning curve for them felt really, really steep. So
I think guard and dwarves are the most challenging to play. But one of my friends, Jesse, who is also Canadian. I think he's from Alberta, though.
That still counts.
But he came in 9th at Adepticon, and he was running guard.
Really?
Yeah, well, he really loves guard.
Yeah, I think if you practice, then that shock of what do I do to so many guys and so many, I don't have enough actions. That's the shock of guard, is that you got so many guys and only 3 activations. I think once you get your head around that, and you really learn how to prioritize what you need to do and what is nice to do, then guard becomes a little bit less daunting. But yeah, like your first game playing guard, you're like, okay,
yeah,
I got 7 dudes.
What do I do?
What do I do?
Hey, but then once you figure out like the champion's pretty fucking awesome, and then the warden is also amazing. Like you kind of you start to figure it out. But I think it's an advanced warband. I think you need to get a lot of games in to be great.
Yeah,
someone who's great at them will destroy a lot of people. So
when I'm teaching folks, because I have all the warbands, I have decks built for all of them, and so I just say, hey, pick whoever you want to play, and I'll teach you how to play the game. And then I always tell them, except for the skeletons, like, don't pick them.
Because you tend to give up glory with like petitioners and stuff, and you think, oh cool, I'm going to resurrect people because you can, but you shouldn't, or you should in certain very situational. Yeah.
So you guys think there's any power creep in the game so far?
I mean, I don't know about the new one. I've read a couple of threads on some of these sort of the Facebook Shadespire groups that are starting to talk about a creep in this last batch of cards. I haven't seen them, so I don't know if it's accurate or not. But I mean, I think it's just you're gonna get, like, I feel like paralysis by analysis is going to start happening. I think there's like the options now, or there's so many of them. So I think you're like every expansion that comes out is basically like, the square root of whatever, or you're kind of doubling the possibilities for decks and combinations and stuff. So I think options, you just have more options. So maybe that's the kind of power creep that you have, is that you can't know what to expect. There's a lot of unexpected out there. So
yeah, and I don't think that there's power creep among the faction cards, but I think there might be some power creep among the universal. But that's what makes it really cool. Is it really power creep if everyone can use it?
Yeah. I guess
that's a very good point.
Earthquake is a perfect example of that. So everyone thought it was going to make this crazy spike of power, but then if everybody has it, it's not a big a deal.
There's a lot more, I think, in this set, and like defense is becoming a little nuts. I think even in the last set, like having Scritch with, like, I don't know, you can roll like 4 defense dice.
Yeah, yes.
And I think now there's a few more cards that like add an extra defense, so I think now you're seeing these things that benefit from going on guard, dodging on blocking on shields and dodges, and with 7 dice, and heals a wound on a crit. So I think defensive cards are getting becoming a thing. I think that doesn't bode well for straight up smashing orcs or smashing reavers, like the things that just want to kill things. I think right now you'll be throwing 3 dice against 7 defense dice, so it can be there seems to be a lot more quality defense cards coming up. So
okay, well, maybe now's a good opportunity to segue. Again, Phil, you set up a beautiful segue. It must be your film writing techniques.
I know. We're setting the scene. We're moving in Act 3.
to maybe look at some of these new cards. Now, of course, GW, which is awesome. Before this, because they're released in a few days, but they've already released all the cards on the card library, which is awesome. A, because the card library is awesome, and B, they're already all out there to see. Anything, have you guys had a chance to look at any of these cards? Some of them have been spoiled before they updated the library, but I think
I got just to look at it very, very briefly. And the one that jumped out at me like right away was Frozen in Time. I was just like, that's just...
is that an upgrade, or is that a...
It's a ploy, and it's called Frozen in Time, and it says choose an enemy fighter and roll a defense die. On the roll of a shield or a crit, that fighter cannot make any action or be damaged in this phase.
It's like Teferi's protection.
And I was just like, oh, you're playing guard, Warden. I choose you.
Yeah, which it's a weird thing. It's like it could be good because you can kind of protect your guy, or you can basically you're going to use it to mess with someone pretty badly. Or low model count armies like Stormcast with 3 models, you get one of them taken out. You're only playing with 2 models too, right? So
I like this one. This is in the Khorne. This is a Khorne specific ploy, Blood Slick Ground. In the next activation, enemy fighters have -2 move.
Oh, that's in the new. That's Magor's Fiends, right?
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's pretty. That's pretty nasty.
Yeah, they'll just be like, "Oh, dwarves, you're not moving."
Yeah, that means they
Skeletons
can't
do not
charge
move.
either, right? They can't charge either.
No, they can't do anything.
Literally, skeletons just have to stand there.
Yeah, you can draw some cards. You can do some stuff. Yeah, there's a couple of nice like in the objective cards. There's a couple of nice ones for fighting that I kind of liked. Stuff about like killing. There's one that's like one of those score immediately if you kill someone in your opponent's zone, or if you kill someone in your territory. I like those like score immediately cards. Like they're my favorite.
Yeah.
And they're just like, there's one little sneaky glory here. There's some pretty good ones that are. I saw one or two glory ones that look pretty cool. I try to remember the names, but
one of them I think is our only way out. It's like a mini supremacy. Score this in an end phase if you hold 3 or more objectives. It's 2 glory.
Oh, that's interesting. What's that one called?
Our only way out.
Our only way out. There you go. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of awesome.
But I also feel like there's a lot of different cards. Like one of them that stood out. It's like another earthquake, honestly. Only it may not cause as much contention, but it's called the Great Concussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you choose a hex on the battlefield, and then you push all fighters 1 hex in whichever order you choose. You push they must move away from the chosen hex.
Wow.
It's a lot more. You can control movement a little bit better with it because you're not forced to all sort of go in that that one direction. So you could have one guy go back 1 square to the left, back 1 square to the right, back
And that makes sense. That makes sense in the setting of the FAQ, which clarified that earthquake everyone moves at the same time. Yeah. This one specifically says in whichever order you choose.
Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense with how they FAQ'd earthquake.
Earthquake.
A couple days ago. What was that? Sorry.
Oh it feels more like there's a little bit more strategic options, I think, with this one specifically, I think. Yeah. So, I like that one quite a bit when I saw it.
So, Phil, you'd like this one. Shard Gale. All fighters suffer 1 damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
You probably like that, Mike. It'll inspire all your orcs in one go.
Right. But then, just like you said, you're like, well, now your opponent has Shard Gale too.
Yeah.
And if they're playing Stormcasts or something and don't really care, or worse, Guard or Skaven, where they're like, oh, my weak guys, I can bring them back, and they hit you for 2. Orcs, that's hard to come back from,
It's that single card. When I saw it, I said, I'm going to play my Reavers now because if that's around, like the Reavers, like even your Blooded Sake is 3 wounds. Karsus is 3 wounds. Mm-hmm. Like they're all 3 wounds, and then Joe Below little dudes, they're like 2 wounds. So yeah, it literally like cuts your wound pool in half.
Well, it just gets your guys inspired. Like,
yeah,
right away.
Yeah, right. You got a couple of them could die, but it definitely feels like it can call your army pretty good, and you don't have a way of bringing them back like Skaven or
no.
And I'm assuming you don't gain glory for people killed by Shard Gale. How does that work?
I think you would.
I think you would.
Oh,
I think you would. Yeah.
Maybe that has to be FAQ'd, but I think you would.
Where you don't get glory for stuff that dies like out of sequence or something. Like I seem to recall there was a weird rule about that, because I assume that you would just get, like, something dies, you instantly get a glory, but I think if you kill your own stuff, your opponent doesn't get glory, if I'm not mistaken. Like if you, like when you use demonic weapon and your own dude dies from demonic weapon, you don't give your
no, that is true. And then there's the other Skaven thing where you can take a guy out of action, although they FAQ'd that, and I don't remember if they said that the opponent gets glory for that.
Because even with shattering,
they said it doesn't.
Yeah, there's a couple of things like that. Like even like shattering terrain. I think if you you push someone and they take a wound and they die. I'm not sure if you get glory for that.
No, you do get glory.
Oh, you do get for that one? Okay.
Yeah, because that's like that's a big time orc trick, or not just orcs, but
right.
But they'll cast, we do shattering terrain, you move, you inspire, you smash a guy and push him off one, and then he dies and you get glory.
Yeah.
And trap works the same way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, you're right. I'm getting confused about different other cards.
So we now have all 6 relics, I believe, Cataphrines relics. So do you think we're going to see that maybe in like the Voltron sort of Skaven deck, where you're just trying to slap all 6 of them onto one like lurking Skaven?
Well, because you can bring them back, right? So
yeah, I think a couple cards are going to start becoming mandatory in people's decks. Forceful Denial is one of them. That's the
to remove
where
the
you can
upgrade.
on a roll. You can you can on a roll you stop a ploy.
Oh yeah.
And then the one you just mentioned, which the name eludes me right now, where you can destroy somebody's upgrade.
When you kill them, you take off an upgrade or something, right? Something like that.
there's one where you just straight up smash it on a hammer or a crit. You just smash an upgrade.
You just smash an upgrade.
Interesting.
So if we start seeing Cataphrane being very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Because 4 glory at the end is and especially like that I like that 4+ relic one, where you like whenever you do an action you draw 2 power cards. Like that's like deck cycling like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Eventually to cycle you to your 6 relics, right?
Yeah.
I was just thinking too, isn't there an objective where it's like you get glory if everybody's wounded? If all your guys are wounded? Because I used to not take that one because it's like, well, I don't want all my guys wounded.
Yeah, I think it's a new one in the Magora's Fiends. It's a Khorne specific one, I think. You get glory if at least all your alive people are wounded, something like that.
I think there is one in a previous set where if everyone has a wound on the battlefield you get a glory, but now you with shard whatever.
Shard Gale.
Yeah, it's like I like it combos with that, so you can get glory from hurting everyone. So
yeah, there's it's really fun how every time a new set comes out, there's like different ways of playing. Now that the 6 relics are out, now this might become a thing, and that's kind of because up to this point they haven't been a thing, right? There wasn't much point in running it.
No,
but now it's like maybe that's going to become a thing. So what can we do to fight it? And
yeah,
it still feels like there's a lot of duds, kind of like there's still a lot of these like weird, especially for objectives. I feel like there's always a lot of duds. Like have one guy in your territory, one guy in no man's land, and then one guy in your opponent's territory, or have everyone near 3 defending players when you kill one guy, but without while you're on 1 foot with and you have at least 2 glories. Like there's a couple of these like really like
very situational.
Like it's a puzzle box thing where it's so easy to.
I just checked the FAQ too, and the card that we were talking about was expendable from Spike Claw Swarm, where you can remove your fighter from the battlefield, and your opponent does not gain a glory point.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So this is a cool card, Improvisation. Discard all power cards in your hand and draw 3 power cards.
Cool.
Oh, that's nice.
That's your 26 card.
That's your 20
deck.
Yeah,
30 cards.
We're going to 30, guys. You need a few more of those to cycle through because you can't otherwise. But that's nice. That's pretty cool.
But give it another 4 or 5 sets. Do you think we're seeing 30, 40 card decks? Like, are we heading to 50, 60 card decks?
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not as well.
You still want your deck to do what it needs to do, right? And I think that's the key. And I think right now what I found in most of my decks is that there's probably 4 cards that I would like to be in my decks that I can't put in my decks because I don't think they cycle through enough. So having these in, then you can kind of bump yourself up to 26. More stuff like Forceful Denial, for stuff like Rebound, which I love. For those those cards that make you roll the dice to do something. I find if you're just running 20 cards and you have too many of those cards that you need to roll for something to happen, I feel like you're walking into, you have less probability of the stuff that you want to do to happen. So it feels like being able to draw more than lets you have more cards, and then having more cards, you can throw in a couple of these situational cards that can help you. So
yeah. I just found another one that made me laugh. It's a ploy, Flickering Step. I don't know who would use this, but It's luring me to it. So you roll 8 dice and you choose a friendly fighter and then push them up to the number of hexes equal to the number of crits rolled. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy. You could just like,
well, you're at least pushing 1. So I mean, think about it. Like, statistically, you're pushing 1. So and maybe 2, but the time that you get to push 3 hexes, I mean, that's a great card. That's like a nice, like sidestep, but like, sidestep with a downside is that every now and then you might not roll any crits, but it almost feels better than.
I'm kind of digging it for like dwarves, because it's like right at the end when you think, oh, I didn't get anybody on an objective. Well, not only that, but I'm on an objective on your side. like all of a sudden, my guys moved like 4.
And I love stuff that moves or attacks out of sequence, like it, because like in the game there's like 12 activations or something, like so anything that you can do, just cause is like money.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these 2 new warbands. So the Magor's Fiends, there's 3 dudes and a dog, and their inspiration requirement is that they have to successfully make an attack. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Wow,
that's pretty amazing.
Most of them are hitting on hammers, I believe, except for the dog.
Yeah, the dog gets 3 attacks. Yeah, it's like such a good. You're completely in control of your inspiration method, which is great because a lot of these inspiration things are like reactive to something. Like except the Skaven, you're doing something, so you kind of dictate when you're inspiring. So there's this one you just you're gonna fight. You don't want to fight.
What we don't know is what happens when they become inspired in terms of their stats, but one would assume that they become a little bit more powerful.
They're pretty decent. I think they go from 3 movement to 4 movement, and they also I think Magoran specifically, I think he showed up somewhere. He gets an extra damage. I think he goes to damage 3 to 4 on 2 hammers. The dog, I believe, gets an extra movement. And he gets a second dodge on his once he gets inspired, and he gets an extra point of damage on his bites. So I think they go from 3 swords to 3 swords and 2 damage instead of 3 swords and 1 damage.
Wow.
But this is me talking out of my.
You're just completely making it up.
I just happened to stumble upon it. I think on Bulls had a couple of cards, but I can't find the whole deck. They had a few of them shown, but yeah, I think that's their thing. They seem like they're these Magor guys are orcs, but with sort of like a corn deck, which because I really like the corn deck for the Reavers. I think I mentioned it like 7 times today. So I think they seem to have a lot of the similar objectives and abilities that the Reavers have, but they have the durability of an orc with the smashiness of an orc. So it's cool. Like I think I'm gonna really like them.
Yeah, they're probably going to get me to play Chaos again.
And I'll see. Yeah,
that's how it starts. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So the other dudes, the Far Striders, they inspire if they end the phase in the enemy zone.
Oh, that's interesting because that's kind of counter to what they want to do.
Yeah, so that's very interesting.
Ugh. And they're also like the problem with. Like it's low movement, right? So
these guys, these guys actually move fast. They move 4.
Oh, they move 4?
So they're extra fast Stormcast. They move 4. They're Stormcast tough. They have 1 shield and 4 health, and they
double shield on.
They all have. Oh, okay, I didn't know that they double shield. Wow, that's pretty good. So maybe they can actually survive then in your zone.
Oh,
yeah. So you charge up there and then come at me, bro.
Yeah. So they actually are not bad in melee. Like 1 hex attack is 2 hammers, 2 damage, and they can of course shoot up to 3 hexes doing only 1 damage. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and they sound like with some buffs. Or some, some of the poise that Stormcast get with guard and all that sort of stuff, that they can actually survive standing in your zone.
Yeah. Are there only 3 of them then?
There's only 3 of them, though. Yeah.
Okay.
And they can. So I think what's neat is that if you do rush into your opponent's opponent's zone, and then they try to have that little sneaky character, sneak into your line to get whatever line breaker or the equivalent, you can kind of turn around with your little gun and try to
Yeah, because you can charge 4 and still shoot 3, and they have a lot of ways of making that shooting attack a little bit more threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I haven't looked at their and I haven't looked at their cards at all, actually. But I'm sure that there's like they're one that I think on face value, I'm looking at them like, this looks like it's going to be hard to play. But with the right decks, with the right cards, if they have stuff that pumps up their range attack damage or makes it a little bit more, they probably have something like on a crit you deal an extra damage or something on your bolt pistol thing. That could be like really, really brutal if they can start sniping characters out.
So I just want to know, like, I haven't looked through all the cards. I want to know if there's a card that lets you use that bird on the dude's hand.
I'm sure the bird is like on his actual stat card somewhere.
No, not that I can see. But
I thought they'd be like,
like shoot it at somebody and it like takes their eye out or something.
Yeah. The old Cotilla's attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only problem with these dudes is that I don't want to paint them because it's like painting Custodes again.
Well, if you paint them gold, you can do like Hollowed Knights or one of the other.
Just don't paint them gold.
Yeah, I like painting stuff.
Paint them like marble.
Because
that'll be easy.
Might be cool.
Well, you can get cleave on your shooting attacks with one of these upgrades. Your attacks get cleave. There's a overcharged gun with on 3 hammers.
Yep.
3 hammers and 1 damage.
There's some sweet upgrades to these guns, and 3 range is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
that's just even if you're not trying to kill somebody, you can just pot shot them, and I'm going to knock you off that objective. Just boop.
But
gone.
I tell you what, there is a generic, like a something that everyone can use, upgrade called Dark Darts, which is a 3 hex ranged attack, 3 swords, 1 damage with cleave.
Ooh.
So everybody can be a Stormcast.
There's a Shade Glass Darts already, and this game would have their own sort of shuriken, so you have like 2 universal sort of dart attacks and 1 scaling specific, so you have a couple of these 3.
Yeah, and then the Shade Glass Axe, that's a 3, isn't it?
Yeah, and that one you can throw. I think it is 3, and that one's great. There's a Shade Glass Spear in this one, so you basically have like one of those 2 range attacks, like the Warden and Critch. Yeah. So
nice.
There's a new Shade Glass weapon in this batch, and it's the Spear.
I could definitely see these Farstriders developing like a new kind of Voltron build, where you buff one dude up crazy, send him to go stand 1 hex into the opponents, and the other guys are providing covering fire. Could be kind of crazy.
And he's just standing there like pinging people off in the head.
I guess their problem is that a lot of the stuff that buffs your damage for your attacks, it tends to specify with a range of 1 or 2. Like they don't let you get +1 damage on a range 3. Yeah, there's a lot of specific wording. Then to counter that, there's a bunch of those cards from the last set that seemed a little useless, like Alone in the Dark or something. There's like this card that just makes your range of 3 like miss or something. Like there's a weird like card that's very specific to like it affects things with range 3 or greater. That makes you like miss more. So
we haven't looked through all their faction specific upgrades, but maybe there's one in there that buffs strength. There must be one in there that makes your ranged attack a bit stronger.
There doesn't seem to be. There's like movement ones. There's like extra, those sort of different weapon ones. There's the one that gives you cleave.
Oh, here, the first attack action in the next activation has +1 damage. No range restriction. Lightning blow.
Oh, nice. that's a ploy, right?
Yeah.
It's not like an upgrade, but you can do it.
Can't be
2
too
damage.
good. Come on.
Yeah, it's forever. 2 damage forever. That'd be amazing.
Punishing volleys. Nice. Okay, cool. I guess we'll just before we go to Q&A, by the time the next Grand Clash, which actually, do they have one in the UK soon? I can't remember.
I don't know.
But I guess so. These guys are coming out this weekend, basically, and then the next American Grand Clash is ATC, which Mike said you're going to be attending.
I'm gonna certainly try to go.
Are you gonna keep sticking with the orcs? You're gonna try out one of the two new bands?
It's like I'm like, no, I'm going to stick with the orcs until you start looking at Magor's Fiends and you're like, well, these guys are very orcish.
They are, yeah.
It's not really Khorne if it's Gork and Mork, right?
Oh, I was going to say, before we jump into Q&A, I have a Q for you, and the Q is your experience with Reavers at Adepticon. See how they, it feels like there's probably something that I'm not thinking about that I'll run into a brick wall with them. But is there something
second, right? They came in second.
They did. I guess they did.
Yeah, they came in second. Yeah.
But yeah, they feel good to me. But maybe maybe they are good. I don't know.
I think they're good. I just kind of wrote them off because I was like, well, a lot of people did, just because when Skaven came out, they were just so. People weren't ready for it, and I think that's a lot of the stuff too. Is that you get that new hotness glow, and then people figure out how to counter it, and the game comes back into balance. So,
yeah. As we said, I do feel like the whole game is pretty balanced. I know some people are raging against the fact that they feel it's unbalanced, but I think they're probably wrong. I think it seems pretty well balanced. Anybody can beat anybody on any given day, and it's 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
But the people that complain are the people that are actually playing the game or just theorizing about the game. Because I find like
complaining.
Because this game, like 100%, like you look at stuff and you're like, I don't know, this looks like it doesn't work, or this looks too strong, and then you play it, and then it just feels like different, and the only way that you just have to play, like you have to play to figure things out, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when Earthquake first came out, I was just like cackling, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do Shattering Terrain and Earthquake and have all these combos. And then like the very first game I played, my buddy's like, it doesn't work that way, and I was like, what? And I go and look back at the card, and I'm like, oh man, and like
but now you don't need to worry about that because you have like that shade glass, whatever, that shade storm or whatever stuff. So it does the same thing without having to move everyone.
Cool. Okay, so we're gonna go into Q&A. We only had a couple of Q&As. So one was from Andrew, who is one of the local guys here who will be playing this weekend. He's literally painted all his warbands in like the last 4 weeks. Pretty crazy.
That's amazing.
Well done.
Yeah.
But he asked, with all the warband decks seeming to need a common set of good cards, are there 6 viable decks that can be built using only 6 warbands? I found I can only build 1 or 2 decks at the most before I run out of the go-to cards for the remaining 4 warbands. And he's got a second question. So what do you guys think of that comment? That's certainly true.
Oh, yeah. do what I do. Like I have I'll it's the way that you kind of do with Magic too. If you're proxying stuff, so what I'll do in between games is that when I swap a card out of one deck, I'll put like a little Post-it inside the card, like inside the sleeve, that says like I'm looking at my Khorne deck right now, and I have one that says acrobatic. It's just a little piece of paper that says acrobatic in my sleeve. So I know that acrobatic is in one of my other decks. So when I play with my Khorne deck, I just find acrobatic where it is, and then I just slide it in. So that way I can have my decks kind of built. They're all essentially built, and then I just kind of swap the cards in and out when I play with the band. So
I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, wholeheartedly agree.
Exactly. So, and it would be nice. Actually, these tournaments where you get like a couple of the promo cards, like it's nice that they seem to be cards that are good in in a couple of different decks. Like it would be nice to have more. Like I find it's like the lame ones, like hold objective 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like those kind of tend to go in a few decks. So it'd be nice to like have more of those. But yeah.
But yeah, proxying. I think proxying is the way to go. I was reluctant at first. I wanted to just I want to use all the cards, but I found myself teaching people a lot of the game, and I wanted to have all viable decks for everything, and proxying is the only way to go.
Yeah.
That's tricky though. Yeah, if you plan on playing with multiple of your own decks, against each other, like for teaching especially. But in that case, you can scan cards and print them, and then use an existing card and then just kind of slide that, in. So,
Yeah.
like one of those crappy cards that you'll never use in any other. Yeah.
I have a ton of card games that are not being played anymore, so they go in sleeves and they have a photocopy or something over the top of it.
So his next part of the question is, any alternative suggestions for sleeves, since he obviously runs into that 20 sleeve limit on the little GW packs?
Just go to like a Magic, any game store, but the Magic.
Just any of those card sleeves.
It is a little. What's kind of what's irking me is that I like having my decks kind of match in color. So I think right now what I've done, which is not working out, is I'll have my all of my my corn deck is all red sleeves, which means that I'm sorting my cards out. My objective deck and my ploy deck looks the same, and every now and then I'll have one card in the wrong thing, and it'll just kind of mess everything up. So for the tournament, I'm going to try to see if I can find a dark red color for my for my objectives and a light red for the ploys.
Yeah, it's actually in the GW pack.
It's in the pack. You have them different.
Yeah. So I would recommend, obviously, Dragon Shields are awesome, and then the Legion shields, the Legion card sleeves work really well. And I use the Serenity sleeves for my objectives because they have a little gold on there, and then I use Night's Watch from Game of Thrones for everything else for power cards because it's dark gray. So.
Interesting.
And it works. It's pretty cool.
So I know you guys are card aficionados, and I'm not. I played Magic in high school, but and this might sound radical to you guys, but how about just not using sleeves?
Oh,
that is heresy of first rate.
You know what? You want to know why? There's a couple of things. It's easy to know which cards are in your deck. It's easier to shuffle. Obviously, shuffling 20 cards is not a big deal, but it's just nicer to shuffle. So, and
with
beer
sleeves?
On tables. Yeah, with sleeves are way easier to shuffle.
No, because if you got cards, you just shuffle them like a deck of cards.
No.
Seizure disorder.
Yeah. Just picked up a few expensive Magic cards over the weekend. I would never.
Yeah, but these cards aren't worth anything. They're not collectibles.
In a way, they're worth more because you can't just rebuy the one card that you're missing, right?
Well, not yet. I'm sure someone might come up with that.
Because every card is worth $30 if you have to buy an expansion just to get the one card.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, serious question. Serious question. If you're new to card games, you might think, well, why do I need to put them in sleeves at all?
Yeah, please sleeve your cards. I'm so OCD, but I sleeve all the cards. If I buy a board game, I buy sleeves for that.
Oh, really?
I sleeve everything.
That's hardcore. Okay. We actually just one more question. Irvin Armitage. Mike, do you know Irvin?
Yeah.
Up at the basement collective guys. Anyway,
yep.
He does ask you why you're so damn handsome. First of all,
I think Jesse put him up to that probably.
And then he asks, "What do we think are the next two warbands?"
After these ones,
and do you think they're part of this new city, or is this the end of this wave? I think, right?
I think so. Yeah.
It feels like it.
In terms of the numbers on the cards, I think they reached the end. I think
it'll be the ghost faction. What are they called? Night Haunts. It'll be a Night Haunt one.
Malignants, maybe. And
I want to say, especially now. Now with the new sort of, we could see a Deepkin warband down the road.
But the symbol was like an anvil or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be Stormcast.
You think so?
But it might be it'll be one of the chambers. So maybe the
Liberators or Prosecutors.
Yeah, the ones, the guys on the dragons or whatever, without the dragons, maybe.
So you think the Stormcast, like the Marines, they're going to get one faction in every iteration?
At least one.
I'd say I was betting on Maggotkin of having in the next wave, it'll be they'll have a Nurgle, sort of a double Nurgle sort of thing. So they'll have the big tough Nurgle the Magor Nurgle, and then little guys, or Zinch. I mean,
it would be cool to see like two Stormcasts, like just because I think it's not the Liberators. Who are the guys who are really really strong? They come with hammers,
Paladins,
like double-handed hammers.
Oh. Yeah, like not Obliterators, but the like the good ones. The are they Liberators?
They all look same.
They are Liberators. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Adjudicators, maybe.
Okay.
Oh, those are arrow guys. Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, those are. Yeah, I don't get the names. I'm like hammer guys, arrow guys, guys with wings.
They're all hammer guys. They all have hammers all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it'll be like the Daughters of Cain, maybe. Like I feel like they're going to start pulling from the more recent sort of releases. So maybe they'll be like those little Arcanauts guys, like the guys with the.
That would be sick. Like a bunch of.
Oh, are those the Sky Dwarfs?
Yeah, the Sky Dwarves. Like I feel like we'll be looking at that. Like I don't know. I'm still hoping for Seraphon. Like that'd be my dream thing. Just dinosaur guys. It's so sweet.
Yeah, but you can't have like a big dinosaur.
No, it'll be like it would be like just like the skinks and those Source Warriors.
Or maybe it'll be like one model in one of these factions that takes up 2 hexes.
Well, the dog does, doesn't he?
The dog seems big. That base is pretty. It's bigger than a Stormcast base.
I think it's just like a 40 or something.
Yeah,
but it wouldn't be that cool. You had like a double, like a model that took up 2 hexes.
Yeah, like you just give me like one Stormcast, but it's a guy on a Dracoth or whatever,
and it blocks line of sight, or some rule that blocks line of sight, so you can hide dudes behind it or something. That'd be cool. All right, cool. Those are the only 2 questions, so that's great. So I'd like to thank Mike for joining us tonight.
I was happy to be here. Yeah, it was great.
And Phil, as usual, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm going to build decks after this. I have all my cards in front of me. I'm going to get ready, train for Saturday.
So, I'm not sure if this is going to come out before Saturday's CanHammer Clash, but if it does, there's still space to come. Even if you want to just turn up on the day and pay your $10, you're welcome to play. There will be space. And otherwise, hopefully, we'll be running another Clash pretty soon. And good luck, Mike, at ATC Grand Clash.
Yeah. Hopefully I can get down there.
Yep, okay. And with that then, I guess we'll say good night.
Good night, man. Bye-bye.
Thank you for completing this episode of CanHammer. If you'd like more information on what we do, our YouTube channel, or any events we run, see canhammer.ca. If you would like to donate to the show, you can visit patreon.com/canhammer, where you can donate and subscribe, and you'll get some sick rewards. If donating is not your thing, then just leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That really helps us get recognized and helps new people find the show. So with that, hopefully we'll see you on the battlefield.